Hi, Florette here, and thank you for joining me at Ink on 3. We're going to have some fun and create a really cute card using one of my absolute favorite stamp sets, My Little Catfish. It has this adorable little mer cat and some seahorses, seashells, some cute sentiments. It kind of went quick in the beginning there, but don't worry, we'll cover all of those things as we go along. So let's start with our little mermaid cat. We're going to watercolor it. I started by embossing the little mer cat with some white embossing powder, and what that's going to do is kind of create a barrier for me. So I'm going to be able to watercolor and not worry so much about going outside the lines. It kind of keeps everything inside a little bit easier. So I wet the paper just enough to give it a nice little gloss. You don't want to over wet your paper. I see a lot of people, they put too much water. So you want to really control your water and have a piece of paper towel next to you so that you can get the excess water off and keep your brush just kind of damp, not overly wet. So I started with the pink and let that kind of move across the tail. Then I decided to add some of the blue for some shadowing, and then when I add the blue to the pink, you get this really cool purple color. And I add a little bit more to get a deeper blue, and now you can see I've got like some blues, some purples, and some pinks, and they're all just blending together. And I'm going to mention throughout here some little tips here and there that'll help you along the way. Like your paper, for instance, if you're using 100% cotton paper, you're going to have more success. It's going to move easier for you. The pigment will blend across the surface easier. It won't suck it up in a way that other papers will do where you can't really blend it after it's put on. This will give you more working time. So you can see what I did on the face part of the cat. I wanted to keep it a little lighter in the center. So I just kind of did a wash of light blue over the whole face. And then I start adding in some shadowing around the whole outer edge just to give it some roundness. And I go in to the little paw area and just below just to give it some shadows. I'm using, another thing is the brush that I'm using. If you really want to have a really great water brush to get good results, you're going to be less frustrated and a lot happier with what you're doing. And I decide that I need my face a little bit darker because of embossing it with the white. I needed a little more depth to be able to see his little face, his little eyes, and his little mouth. And then once I got a little deeper tone in the center, I decided to go a little bit deeper around the outside. So once I finish that, I decide I'm going to add a little pink in his little ears and dry it so that I can see what I have so far. And then I decide I want to add a little pink to the cheeks and a little more pink into the tail and some blue shadowing as well. But you'll notice I keep dipping into that pink, and the reason is, as you go along here, is that I want that pink for some reason to be a little darker than it is. So I even go into the pan and try to get it a little deeper. But if you ever run into that where you want your color to be a little richer, I'm going to have a little trick for that as well, because that pink, that was as pink as it was going to get. So I'm like, okay, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to add something else to it a little bit later. So I dry it again and decide that's enough for the painting. But the one thing about watercoloring is you don't ever really have to be done. You can always go back and add more color if you want to deepen it, add some shadows and things like that. But I decide that's enough watercoloring for now, and I'm going to cut it out and see what I think about it for my little card. I'm going to set it aside and let that sit so I can look at it again. But I'm going to make this really cool round circle piece and use the new embossing powders, Chrome. And these embossing powders are super, super fine. And what I did was I just took the ink pad and dabbed it all over a die cut that I cut out of cardstock. Then I sprinkled it with the embossing powder and I heated it up, embossed it once, but because I wanted it to be really thick, I did it a second time, and that's what I'm doing here is heating it up for a second time just to get a really thick coating. But what I love about this embossing powder is it's super fine. There's no fillers. It dries, it melts, I should say, really, really fast and is very, very vibrant, and you can see it's super smooth. So once I'm happy with that, you can see I decide to go back in with my little cat and add pencils. So pencils are a great thing for adding details or adding more color to a piece when you're watercoloring, because I just wasn't happy with the depth of color that I got on those two colors that I had picked out. So I took a pink Prismacolor pencil and a blue Prismacolor pencil that I thought were very close to the colors of the paint, and I just kind of scrubbed them on. I don't worry too much about the texture or anything, because you'll see I'm actually using on top of that a blender pen, and this is a finesse blender pen that I just love. I know a lot of people will use Gamsol, but it can get very messy. It has a lot of odor to it. These pens are fabulous because they're so neat and easy to use, and they blend beautifully, and you can see the results that I got. Now it's really vibrant, it has a lot of depth, and I just love it. So then I decided to cut a little tag, "See you soon." It's the sentiment from the stamp set, and I just thought that would be really, really cute on that medallion. So once I looked at my piece, I decided that I wasn't going to keep that background white after all. Originally I thought I was, but I thought I really wanted it to be blue. So I got some ink, a blendable ink, and blended the edges with a blending tool and got this really pretty glow all around the edges of the card. And then I take my ink off cloth and I buff it, because that's going to get any of the residual ink that was on top of my embossing powders off. And so you're still going to have that really pretty, beautiful chrome embossing powder shining on top of the ink. So you can just ink right over the top of it and then buff it all out. Then I just center it on my card and decide where I'm going to place everything. And then I add some foam tape to the medallion piece. And it's really great because the embossing powder really makes it look like a metal. It looks like chrome, and all I have to do is add some tape and put it on top, and it's just going to give it a really cool metallic look. And I think it goes really cool with the little seahorses and the seashells on the back. So I decide just to pop it on the upper middle part of my card. I put some little tape on the back of the little catfish and a little bit on the little tag, and then I do a little embellishing, which you'll see in a minute. But I just love this stamp set because it's just so darn cute, and it actually has some sentimental value, because when I originally created a long time ago that little cat, I drew it because I had a little cat when I was about 8 years old that I had named Catfish. So when I was creating this stamp set, I had her in mind, that this was my little catfish. So it's like a little mermaid cat, and it's also a little catfish. And so I added some bling to it, kind of looks like some bubbles, to make it look really cute and just give it a lot of dimension and interest. And then of course added a little sparkle to it, and it really just shimmers. So thanks. I hope you enjoyed this card, and I will see you next time.